I just talk with that a lot, and now everybody's like, "Oh, like Turner's this huge Snapchat bull." Which, sure, yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of what they do, and that was just one of the things I kind of did to build a brand around, just trying to have insights on things that other people weren't talking about.
Peter Saddington, your big game hunter, and guys, we have our sights on someone special today.
Only a mother could invest in this idea.
Made this like super artistic.
That is actually absolutely correct. And that's a very, very astute assessment, actually.
True startup story, guys. You got it. Your company just got seed round financed. Congratulations. You're going to the moon. But now you have to scale. You found great talent out in California, New York, Georgia, and even Eastern Europe. So what communications platform will you be using to ensure your international team is always aligned? Well, the answer is easy. Slack.com for Teams. We've used Slack for all of our previous startups, and they've supported us in tremendous ways. And we want to give them a thanks today for supporting VCHunting.com. Did you also know that Slack is a great tool for personal use? Yeah, I use my own personal Slack channel to drop in documents, notes, to-dos, and follow-ups to ensure that my workflow throughout the day is right on course. I promise you, if you try out Slack.com for personal use, you'll end up using it for your team as well. Go to Slack.com to check it out. Welcome everybody to another episode of VC Hunting with me, Peter Saddington. You guys know that we are on the hunt for the untold stories of venture capitalists, and I got a great guest for us today. It's Turner Novak, who is a general partner at GELT.VC, and GELT.VC focuses on early stage, and they could write you a $25,000 to a $250,000 check. Turner Novak, thanks so much for joining the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just get right into it. From what I understand, and this is going to be a great question to get us into the game here, is that you made, and this is really unique to me, you made the jump into venture capital from a small Midwest city, and you had no relevant technical experience. I think this is going to be an encouraging response from you for anyone out there that wants to get into VC and might not have the quote unquote requisite requirements to do so. So Turner, tell us, how did you get into VC with no technical background coming from a small Midwest city?
Yeah, I guess I can kind of give you the going back the whole 5-minute story.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
Originally born in Canada, born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and then moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan with my parents when I was a kid. And parents separated, dad moved back to Canada, and my mom, to stay in the country, went back to school full time to get a visa.
Nice.
And she also worked some odd jobs here and there, and she also owned her own small business. So kind of what initially got me exposed to entrepreneurship. As a kid, I didn't know what entrepreneurship was. I was always pretty nerdy, took some programming and art and design classes, thought I'd kind of do something tech related. But at the same time, kind of saw my mom struggle with her business. She's a wedding gown designer. So she designs custom wedding gowns. It's not really a business where you make a lot of money. So, I just kind of got a front row seat to the struggling creative entrepreneur. She's a crafts person. And I was just kind of always like, wow, I need to understand business. So kind of went to the local public state school called Grand Valley State University, majored in accounting and finance. And, I just wanted to learn about business, basically, is why I went to school. And I fell in love with investing when I was on campus. I joined the investment club, was the president for 2 years, super involved on campus, did a bunch of internships, kind of corporate finance type stuff, interned at a private equity firm, and really was getting my resume ready to kind of go do some type of big city type finance.
Yeah, I was about to say Wall Street stuff.
And maybe like a tech job. I was always really intrigued by just the idea of startups. Kind of just growing up, sort of being interested in sort of new technology and, being really online, digitally hyper connected. But I met my wife senior year of college, and she had a job lined up after graduation. So
nice.
So we decided to stay. And then, so my first job out of school, I worked at a bank.
Okay.
Basically the best kind of finance job I could get in Grand Rapids, Michigan was working, lending money to businesses. So, and it was awesome because now you see so many VCs are so hyper-focused on cash flow, profitability, and you have to understand that if a company is going to pay back a loan. So I kind of had that just ingrained from day one. And that's kind of the fundamentals of investing, is understanding either today or at some point in the future, what's the cash flow going to be, and whether it's an actual current cash flow or some kind of leading indicator of potential cash flow, whether it's revenue growing at a really high rate, or if there's no revenue yet, but you have some kind of a KPI like number of users or specific time spent using your product, or, times logged in per day. There's a lot of different things that kind of flow from that. But ultimately, cash flow is how you value businesses. And that's really what I learned, kind of the fundamentals of there. And always knew I wanted to be an investor. Was always kind of intrigued by VC, kind of being the intersection of investing in tech. But being in Michigan and also being in not even the biggest city of Michigan, it wasn't really on our radar. Like, I'm going to go be a VC. I thought it'd be cool, but, I thought it was a long shot. So I got a job working in an endowment after the bank. Was there for about 3.5 years. And endowments, if you're unfamiliar, basically, we are kind of the ones who a lot of the big VCs are raising money.
Right.
So, and not just VCs, but a lot of these other asset classes. Like if you invest in a real estate fund or a hedge fund, or someone who invests in publicly traded stocks, or who invests in bonds, we're basically the people who are giving money to all those different expert investors and all these different asset classes. And it was an awesome experience, just learning to think like a big picture institutional investor. How do they think about their portfolio? How do they think about the world? How do they analyze and do due diligence on these investment managers who are experts in a certain asset class? And I learned so much because everyone on our team was generalists. Some of these big asset managers, they have people who specialize in one asset class, like venture capital or buying real estate. And we all did everything. So I kind of, during my time there, I think we made investments in pretty much every asset class while I was there. Nice. So I really didn't become an expert on anything, but just kind of got a really good appreciation of just how to think like an investor in multiple different facets of investing, which I think is super valuable. I mean, I've learned a ton as a VC, kind of reading, observing things from Warren Buffett. I've taken a lot of principles from real estate. I mean, it's, you can learn a lot. So while I was at the endowment, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's, kind of tracing your history here. I really love kind of the genesis of your story. It's your mom. I mean, kind of, don't we all end up being like our mama anyway? But mom, small business, wedding dresses, obviously not generally that scalable.
She's not raising venture money. Yeah.
Yeah. Generally not that scalable.
She's so talented, so passionate about what she does. She made my wife's wedding gown. It was one of those things. I grew up with it, and I was like, man, this is so cool. I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn about this.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that sometimes the story diverges at this point in saying, hey, I saw it from my parents, or I saw it from my mom, and that made me want to go into business. What is intriguing here, though, your path diverged in a different way. You said, hey, I get to understand kind of the startup world, the hustle. And I think you said maybe even something to the effect of the suffering of the artist, or something like to that effect. But you came around.
Hopefully not that exactly, but
I don't think you said that, but something to that effect of, the artist's plight, the plight of the artist, right? But you came around it a different way, in that you went into finance, you went into business, and you started being able to see lots of different variations of investing. And I think that's a really unique story. And so from seeing all these patterns, being able to see it from different perspectives, really gives you more of a generalist. But that's not a bad thing if you're going to be investing in lots of different people, lots of different ideas. So that brings us to GELT.VC, right? So you ended up at GELT.VC not too long ago, just a year ago or so. How did you end up there?
Yeah, so when I was at the endowment, I kind of started writing online, started tweeting thoughts out on Twitter. I had nobody followed me online at all. I just started putting thoughts out there, and it was typically, I wasn't trying to just say things that everybody kind of knew. I was really more of like, here's something that everybody's talking about, and I think the exact opposite, and I think the consensus is wrong, or I disagree with it, and here's what I think, and I'm just kind of laying out the facts, like did it in a good way, but I'm just like, people are going to read this, and they'll either be like, this guy's crazy, or this is kind of insightful, like I'm going to pay attention to this guy.
Oh, well, I would say guys like that. I like guys like that because they have a spine. They're willing to put the stake in the mud and say, "Hey, I might be wrong, but this is how I see the world. Correct me, internet." Which it's the internet. Whatever you say, you're always
Yeah.
going to be corrected, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the big ones, like everybody knows me for this, was when Snapchat was kind of going through its struggles after the IPO. I'm like, no, they'll be fine. Like, here's all the metrics. You know, you look at their ad pricing, you look at the users, you look at the potential ad load they can do. They're basically setting up to become this sort of augmented reality platform. You just look at where it's priced. Like, it's absolutely insane that people think these guys are going to go bankrupt. And I've just talked with that a lot. And now everybody's like, oh, like Turner's this huge Snapchat bull, which sure, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of what they do. And that was just one of the things I kind of did to build a brand around, you know, just trying to have insights on things that other people weren't talking about. And that's kind of, I guess, really like where I think I have some value as being an investor is just, you know, being somebody who pays attention to a lot of different things and tries to give a second or third input on something that, you know, maybe other people aren't thinking about yet.
And,
You know,
and I was going to actually bring an idea up like that, because this is actually the third time that you've somewhat referenced this idea of analysis, data, and paying attention. Earlier, you said you fell in love with investing and kind of the data behind it, looking at all the things that are going on. Obviously, from the endowment job, you had opportunities to invest in lots of different companies, and you like seeing that. Do you feel like you're naturally inclined to look at data? Is that kind of how your mind works? Some people are very specific and niche. They dig right in. But are you the type of person that likes to see the meta, all the data, so you can make informed decisions?
yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I really have always liked about early stage investing is, let's say you have all the data. Somebody can go and say, you're valuing a company, figuring out what it's worth. Here's all the line items in the financial statements, and here's what the company should be valued at. And everyone knows that. For me, it's more of like, okay,
what does it mean?
well, when you're valuing a business, it's basically, what do you think all the future value that this company is going to create, what all this cash they're going to generate over the next 100 years or whatever, what is that worth today when you kind of discount the time value of money from a couple of years out in the future back to today? So really what I enjoyed was more of like, hey, people like aren't paying attention to this thing. Like, the company's going to be way bigger in 3 years than people think. It's a good time to invest. And I was always fascinated with kind of tech anyway. So I did a lot of public market investing and thinking about tech stocks. And I kind of slowly would get drawn back to kind of this like, wow, why couldn't I invest at a $10 million valuation or a $4 million valuation instead of like 10 billion or 100 billion? You know, it's a little bit of a different stage, but I was always like, man, like, but I can kind of, you could see this company working, like, why not invest early? And I just kind of got drawn to it and attracted to it, and was kind of trying to figure out, like, how do I actually get there? What do I need to do? What do I need to be good at?
And so you attracted the eyes of Keith and Damien over at GELT.VC, and you joined them last year. And I really love this idea of you looking at the larger meta, looking at the larger data sets. And by the way, one of your first tweets from July 25th, 2011, I think it's your first tweet ever. You said, redid my stock portfolio today and invested a lot of money. Got to take rides if you want to succeed. # debt ceiling. So yeah, you started out in the stocks, and your first about throwing in. And I had a personal question here. You don't have to answer if you're uncomfortable.
That's awesome.
But what is a lot of money in 2011 to you? Was that like
in college? It was probably like $1,000, probably less than that.
Well, very
That's
good.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you looked at all my tweets forever. That's great.
Hey, I spent about 2 hours of research on every person. That way I can get the untold stories and not just same stuff that every other podcast does. But so I'm gonna juxtapose everything that you've talked about so far. Investing, looking at learning about investing in lots of different companies, creating new perspectives of investing, and looking at the data. Now, we've talked a little bit about that. However, on GELT.VC, on GELT.VC homepage, the two questions you guys ask are more human than data. The two questions you ask when it comes to investing, the first one is, would you be proud to tell your kids we were early backers of this company is the first one. And the second question on GELT.VC is, would I want to work for this founder and company for the next 10 years? Those are very human centric kind of visions and focuses. So
Yeah.
how do you play into that? And where did obviously at some level, your interest in investing in the people behind the data and the people behind the tech? Tell us a little story about that. How did that emerge to you? And why did GELT.VC hire you when it seems like maybe you're more focused on the data and the finances?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those qualitative things, those are kind of leading indicators that eventually show up in the data.
Fair
So
enough.
you look at a company like, let's say Amazon. I'm cherry picking. Amazon's one of the most successful businesses of all time, but for such a long time, people were criticizing them for investing in real estate. They're like, you're an internet business. Why are you leasing warehouses? And so I think for me, it was ultimately, okay, to be a good investor, you have to basically figure out what are qualitative things that the company's doing, whether it's building some kind of unique competitive advantage that has never existed before, or flipping the incentives of an industry, and being able to identify that as an investor and help founders basically figure out, like, you have a capital efficient approach to how you're doing this compared to everyone else in the industry. And there's some nuance of what you're doing where it's too hard for people to compete. Like you should be doubling, tripling down on this. And these are all things that, it doesn't really show up in the data. Maybe it shows up like in Amazon, you look at it today, or Facebook, printing cash, probably one of the most profitable business models at all time. But you even look back a couple of years ago when they went public, people were like, this is a website. Why is it worth $100 billion? This is the biggest bubble I've ever seen. And you see these debates on all these companies like Tesla, Netflix, WeWork, all these businesses. And it's basically a function of all these product decisions that they're making. How does that decision eventually lead to cash flow that the business is valued on at some point in time? And that was just always really attractive to me. I never thought, I'm going to make a better spreadsheet than somebody and being able to, I enjoy looking at the data, but I don't think I'm going to be able to like out nuanced analyze than the guy who's got a PhD in stats or is a machine learning expert. Like, that's just not me. I can't compete there. So I really like to.
And I would say in many ways, you probably don't want to compete. If you're going to have to require that much, let's just say diligence, especially at the early stage. Let's be intellectually honest. It's not like you guys are focused on Series B, C and D and E and F, right? I mean, with massive amounts of traction, and scale is the only name of the game, right? In the early stage, it really is a lot more gut. And so I want to kind of tailwind into the second question on the GELT.VC, which is, would I want to work for this founder or company for the next 10 years? That is, when I considered that question, Turner, to be quite frank, it was hard for me because 10 years is a long time. And so my question to you is this, it's for you, Turner Novak. How do you determine that? How do you determine whether this individual, right, this founder, this maybe co-founders, these couple individuals, how do you specifically determine whether these are the type of individuals that you want to work with for the next decade?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is kind of how they're thinking about the product and the industry, what their integrity is like. I think integrity is really important. How do they attract talent and hire a team?
Do you have an example of an individual where you were able to kind of hash out their integrity and the different ways of models that they use to think?
Yeah, I guess just asking questions on like, what's your process for hiring the team? What are your thoughts around doing like competitive analysis, market analysis? You can kind of get a feel for how people think. Also, just the way they answer a lot of other questions. A lot of these are kind of secondary. You kind of get a little bit of insight on different things based on conversations. And I think just having that as part of who we are and speak to, I mean, it just attracts a certain type of founder and certain type of team. And that's ultimately what we want to back. We want to back companies where we're proud that we're helping bring this company into the world because it's making the world a better place in some capacity. And every single business doesn't have to be that way necessarily. You don't have to be solving world hunger or, in the traditional sense, but like if you're helping people save money, you're giving people more time to do other things with their life, you're helping serve people's interests and keep them happy in some way. There's a lot of different ways to think about it. Helping people be healthier, eat healthier,
Did you know that there's even more value than just audio or video? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok @VC Hunting, and make sure to sign up for the VC Hunting newsletter, where you'll be able to get weekly news on venture capital, startups, founder stories, and the occasional wisdom extracted from Peter's brain. Go to vchunting.com to sign up. And now back to the episode.
All of these matter. I've been meditating recently, and I'm not going to take a lot of time talking about it here, but I've been meditating recently on the nobility of work and how the work really doesn't matter. There's a lot of nobility in just work itself and putting in a good day's worth of work. And when it comes to the scale in terms of, saving world hunger or just creating a business that can be somewhat sustainable for hopefully, a decade or so with some type of funding, you're fundamentally allowing individuals to seek out their work and allow them to do their work. And I think there's a lot of nobility in that. I think as a VC, you can really be proud of the fact that even though an investment might not work out and it'll die out in 5 or 7 years, you've given that individual real opportunity to learn about themselves, grow, figure out how to solve problems better, be a better person, maybe even through the course of it, have enough time to be a better husband, better dad, better father, who knows? And so I've been really meditating on the value of and the nobility of work. I know I might be overthinking it here, but what do you think? Am I overthinking it here?
Yeah. You know what? I've never really thought about it that deeply before. But yeah, I do think it's fun to help people build cool companies that hopefully is impacting the world in a good way. My goal as an investor, it's to generate returns for my investors. But to do that, I think involves a lot of what I just talked about. Like you have to be really helpful for founders, be a good member of the ecosystem, just try to be really insightful on the types of companies that you're backing and be really deliberate on who you're investing in and think for yourself. Awesome. I realized that I never really finished answering the original question of how I ended up linking up with GELT.
Yeah.
So one of the things I did was to really kind of convince VCs that I should be a VC. So I started writing online, meeting people that way. And, I'd kind of like book a flight out to San Francisco for a couple days, take some days off work, meet up with, 6 people a day, 8 people a day while I was out there, kind of slowly building a network that way. One of the things I did was I did a fantasy VC portfolio. It was kind of fantasy sports meets investing to kind of build a sort of a fake track record. Because typically to get a job in venture, like I said, you have to really prove and kind of have a VC convinced that when they hire you, you're going to be good at the job. And whether that's you worked at a tech company that's going to have other people going to start companies, so you know them and you'll be able to invest, or you have a network from where you went to school, or that you have people who could invest in the fund.
You got to bring something to the table. You got to bring something.
I had nothing. I didn't have any of that stuff going on. So I just kind of said, well, here's the companies I would pick if I was a VC. Here's sort of a 1-page investment memo on who and why. And then just kind of, I didn't really have any data either on any of these. It was just kind of, looked online, Googled things, looked on Reddit, tried to find like product reviews, people complaining about the product or praising it, watched YouTube and podcast interviews with the founders to kind of hear them talk about the business and maybe get hints on, where they were thinking long-term. I just did that for about a year, found 7 that I liked. I just threw them up online. And one of the founders who was in the GELT portfolio, he tweeted on Twitter and was like, "This is the best analysis of my company I've ever seen." And I was like, "Oh, wow, this is awesome." And so kind of met some VCs that way, a little bit more than I already had, and got some interest on interviews. And I reached a point where I flew out to San Francisco to do kind of 5 interviews all at once. 4 of them involved moving to San Francisco for kind of like associate, junior partner type of roles. One of them was working part-time remotely for a 4 Capital, who I ended up going with because they were open to basically giving me a shot to, stay in Michigan.
Yeah.
And that's what was really important to me. And some of the other interviews didn't work out, didn't get an offer. like had a lot of that. I mean, I made this process sound very straightforward and glamorous, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people,
No,
had good
it's
conversations.
hard work.
But
I can tell.
yeah. Oh yeah. And so, yeah, I was there for this past summer. It was awesome. They're really smart, really great guys, super kind, super helpful in terms of just learned so much about being a VC from them. And they were kind of always like, hey, we're not ready to hire anybody full-time in the investment team yet. And I'd quit my job. They were like, originally, like, you can work part-time, a couple hours a week. We'll pay you very handsomely for the part-time work. And I was like, no, I want to do this full-time. You can pay me the same amount, but I want to do this. So sold all the real estate that we owned in Grand Rapids, moved to Ann Arbor, and moved in the same condo building as the in-laws, which is pretty nice when you've got a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And so kind of Gelt came into this picture because kind of this whole time, I met him about a year and a half ago, and we'd always had these conversations, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. They're real estate investors, but they have a very small venture fund that they had invested the first time, and they kind of brought me on to basically be the guy for the second fund. And we had some good discussions on it, and they're like, yeah, we want to bring you on as partner in the fund, make all the decisions. You can live wherever you want to live. We've got our existing investor base, back office, and
I love it.
Yeah. So it ended up. It was one of those things where it probably would have taken me about 5 to 10 years to get to that point, kind of slugging it out. And they just said, let's do this right now. So
I don't
pretty
think,
awesome.
I love the story, by the way. I love it. And it's so encouraging, Turner, because there's so many juicy bits that I picked up from it. First and foremost, it shows, this is a real life example. And I'm talking about this all the time on my podcast, is that you can become whatever you want. You can be whatever you want.
Yeah,
you have to search for it. You have to put in the work. Like you said, you started out writing, blogging, getting your name out there, tweeting, getting noticed, right? Talking on, I've watched several of your shows that you've been on. You've been on Hyper Change, and you've been on Venture Stories with Eric Torenberg. Like, I've watched these, and so you've put yourself out there, and you did good work. Your analysis, I caught wind of some of your analysis on some of these startups in the past, and putting in that work shows people that you're of top shelf quality, and
I hope so.
Well, that would make them want to hire you. And so this is an encouraging story to anyone out there, that you literally can seek out and find and become that which you desire. You just have to put in the work. And so I really appreciate that. And that same narrative right there is exactly what founders need to hear constantly, is that they can achieve it. And again, they might not be solving cancer, but they can achieve it if they continue to grind day in and day out, put in a great day's worth of work, and pivot when necessary, when things aren't working out. But I love that story, Turner. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. I think in terms of founders, like I'm not a founder. It's not quite the same thing, but like you said, maybe there's some parallels.
Oh, big parallels. Frankly, you're just one step ahead of me, considering what we talked about offline, right? I'm doing exactly what you're doing. You did. I'm doing it differently, but it's very, very similar. I want to move on to a couple things. So I got some questions from you about you, brother. On August 29th, 2019, so not too long ago, but August 29th, 2019, on an interview on Hyperchange, you spoke a lot, and you spent a lot of time talking about social and broadcast models of the future. And so what rose up in my gut as I was listening to this is, where does social need to go now? It's a very general question, but you and I were talking about TikTok and looking at that before that we pressed the record button. So I could tell that you were socially inclined at some level. Right. Social and broadcast models. What do you think? Where do you think social is going next? If that's even answerable.
Yeah. I mean, one of the crazy things about thinking about social media, consumer social products, is all these big kind of platforms that have rose up. I don't think the armchair philosophers sitting out there would have predicted that they would have became the next big platforms. I mean, you really think about it, like Facebook. What did it start as? A way to
rate girls.
People, see people in different classes and see what their relationship status was. And now it's got 2.2 billion monthly users globally or something.
Yep.
And then you think of something like Twitter. It started on your computer and you could like SMS in too, but it was like, I'm eating bread, or like, hey, I'm doing this right now. And now it's how most people get their news.
Yeah.
Something like Snapchat. It was a way to send pictures to people, communicate with pictures. And now it's a way that a lot of teenagers stay in touch and communicate and get a lot of their news from.
It's actually crazy. I witnessed something that I never thought I would ever witness on a school campus. I saw kids not texting each other. They were Snapchatting each other and literally spending the extra time to type the text over the picture. And and it's like, whoa, bro, that literally takes 20 more seconds of time, because you got to snap the picture, then you got to write the text over it, and then you got to send it. But these kids, they're sitting there on the benches and they're just Snapchatting back. I'm like, how is this a reality? Why is this more effective than just a daggone text message? I didn't have the answer. I'm still confounded today.
So my answer to that is, if you really think about the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Let's say I send someone a picture right now of what I'm doing, and they can see you on the screen. They can see that it looks like we're doing a podcast interview. It looks like I'm sitting in a conference room at my co-working space. I can literally take this picture, snap it, send it to a friend or my wife or whoever, and just say, busy right now, or like hanging with Peter, or like doing a podcast. And they know, and there's so much context in the picture.
Yeah, there's so much context. I get it.
Really
now.
Think about like a teenager sitting at a park bench with a friend. There's some food. They're playing. There's like, they both have their dogs. They're throwing a football around. A picture shows all that context, and and I think it lets you kind of express just how you're feeling and what's going on. And I think sort of Snapchat's ethos is empowering self-expression, really, and creativity with the way people talk. And maybe teens are a little bit more inclined to communicate that way. But I think we're kind of seeing with some of these other products, like, when you do a Facebook post, it lets you add a background, and it can be pink and flowers and hearts, or it can be like skull and crossbones or whatever. You add a little bit of expression to what you're feeling. So I think, the question of how these different social networks evolve, I mean, it's usually just some weird new format of expressing yourself or creating some kind of content. That's typically how these emerge. You look at even something like HQ Trivia. It was no one had figured out how to do, and you could argue people still haven't quite figured out how to do these scheduled TV style, every 8 p.m. you watch Grey's Anatomy on ABC.
Right.
Or you turn into HQ Trivia at, I think, 3 p.m. It was like, or something, 5 p.m. Eastern or something. I forget when it was, but yeah, I mean, they really cracked that nut, and it's kind of a new sort of format that people got to work on the new sort of platform of mobile versus TV, computers. Even YouTube, it was just like a way to post random videos, and they kind of turned it into this platform for people to create content and start making money. And I think that's ultimately where a lot of these go is there a way for these creators, especially in an era when there's no gatekeepers, like, you think of radio or TV.
Yeah,
really had these, you had these channels that were sort of locked down that these gatekeepers had. Now that the channels and these lockdown gates are basically YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And then it's a function of, can you, instead of as a, radio program or a TV broadcast program, can you make money with commercials on your TV channel, whether it's like TBS with all the different shows, or a content creator creating TV shows for TBS or selling them to CBS. Now it's a function of, can you generate revenue, make money, run a business from a YouTube channel? And whether that's the ad share, whether it's selling merch, whether it's, doing pop-up events and selling tickets to those. There's a lot of different things you can do. And I think what we'll see is a lot of these platforms will add new ways for creators to make money. And it'll probably be part of the platforms, really. So you'll see Instagram incorporate things like shopping. You'll see YouTube incorporate shopping. You'll see TikTok incorporate shopping. TikTok's going to start paying creators. They kind of already do. TikTok will probably do some kind of revenue share.
For sure.
And you'll see anybody who creates something, like whether it's art, whether it's TV show, whether it's music or a podcast or funny TikTok videos, like if you can create a way for them to basically make a living, you'll be able to create some sort of media business, some type of social media business. And whether it's your live streaming platform where there's like channels where people are live streaming, or whether it's, a lot of people like talk about AirPods apps, whether it's somehow like Radio
Anything.
2.0 or something. Yeah, as a VC, I have no idea what it's going to be. Like, I don't even like making predictions because I'm going to be wrong.
Well, and that's actually kind of my summary of everything that you've said, is that nobody really knows where social and broadcast systems are going to go. However, I think you hit the nail on the head in many ways, and I'm going to kind of summarize it, is that creator tooling, right? Creator monetization, and empowering users with no walled gardens, the ability to literally communicate better throughout the world and to have commerce through it. I think that's where all of these platforms are going. And frankly, we're kind of behind the ball, and no one likes to, in the political realm, they don't like us giving props to China. But I'm telling you, China they're killing it on the social media platform e-commerce side. I mean, you can literally watch a video, and I've seen people do it. They can watch video, click on it, like in real time, click on it, whoop, buy the dress that the actress was just wearing, and then keep watching the video. No lag, no doubt. I was like, man.
Yeah. And part of it too is you really think about, one of the things I really think about as a VC is what's the competition like, whether it's other startups or incumbents. I don't really want to, I don't think there's much hope if you're a startup trying to compete against Facebook and Google and now Amazon, Snapchat, Pinterest for ad dollars. That's just really tough. So you're seeing a lot of these models based on commerce, based on subscriptions, things that those big, massive $100 billion companies aren't good at. You're seeing models that kind of sort of flip incentives a little bit, because a company like Google, they make money from ads. Facebook makes money by optimizing the number of ad impressions they can show and optimizing how likely somebody is to convert on a purchase.
For sure.
So if you create a business that basically, you figure out a way to make money that doesn't involve doing that, it's going to be very hard for one of these companies who are well-oiled cash flow machines. It'll be tough for them to compete against.
For sure. So, that's why you just build something that they can integrate with and acquire.
Yeah, that too. And you're seeing too, some of these companies go really vertical. I mean, the only reason Facebook works is because companies can make money paying Facebook to then sell things. So let's just say theoretically, Facebook launched their own internal brand selling shoes, candles, all these things people are buying on Facebook. Facebook makes money because the margins are massive. So Facebook could just take a cut, private label, make these brands. Like, I don't think they would do that, but you're kind of seeing some companies go kind of vertical, like ByteDance, which owns TikTok. They're trying to get more into gaming, and mobile gaming ad revenue is huge there. But also a lot of, you can kind of do a lot of like cross promotion. So instead of placing an ad, which a mobile game developer purchases, and then the mobile game developer gets them in their ecosystem and starts making money, ByteDance can just make all that money internally, just instead of doing an ad, just getting them downloading their game that's in the ByteDance ecosystem. Exactly. So we're kind of starting to see all these ad companies, like models that you think would be advertising, starting to go vertical. And that's also with commerce too. Just start letting the creators sell things directly on the platform.
Well, so, if you're well endowed and you have lots of capital behind you, like a Facebook certainly does, then you can create new verticals so that you can inject your ad tech into them for sure. We're seeing that. And I mean, I think, and I don't know the future here, but in terms of Google, sometimes the first full page is all ads.
It's all ads.
It's almost crazy. So,
and you kind of think like, can Google actually compete in subscriptions or in actually selling things themselves and enabling that? Or are they going to make all their money from advertising and they're structurally unable to compete on some of these other categories? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, let's hope it's a blend of those, because I don't want to have the 4 tech overlords for all of our lives. Because go to Facebook for everything. I want to pivot because we're winding down the time here. I got 2 questions left that I do really want to answer. The first one is, On December 24th, 2019, what, you don't do a Christmas Eve, bro? December 24th, 2019, you were on, no, I guess you recorded it earlier, but it was published on December 24th, 2019 on Venture Stories with Eric Tornberg. You had a really interesting conversation that I wasn't satisfied with in terms of some of the responses, but my feelings aside, you were talking about the relationship between LPs and venture capitalists, and you said that we need to restructure the DNA. That was interesting. Restructure the DNA of a venture fund. So here's a broad question: what's the next evolution of venture funds, and what needs to happen? Is venture capital broken?
Trying to think what I meant by that answer. I don't remember saying that. I did listen to the podcast after we recorded it. Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing with venture is the returns are high. So as an LP, especially if you have a lot of capital to deploy, you're interested in putting money there because the returns, theoretically, you think they'll still be there. So we're seeing a lot of money get put in. And with anything, the more money that comes in, the more competition, any profit that is there, whether it's as a investor, like it's all getting arbitraged away. And you see that with businesses, with investments, where the valuations are at. So I think there's going to be a lot of people trying different things. You kind of think of how traditionally ventures worked. You have sort of the gatekeepers. I think the gates are sort of coming down, but they're just kind of getting changed a little bit, where ultimately it's, you kind of think of it like a business or like a product. You're trying to acquire customers, users. You're trying to acquire LPs. You're trying to acquire founders to invest in, I guess. There's just different ways of doing that. That's sort of evolved not only in investing, but also in different types of businesses. Like TV was one of the best ways to acquire customers for a long time for these massive brands. And then now it's Facebook and it's more digital. So we're kind of seeing different things with venture where, especially, you're kind of seeing costs of living are going up in certain places. The access to information and talent is going down in certain places. So you're seeing someone like me who can be a VC living in Ann Arbor. I don't have to be in San Francisco. I'm there once a month for a week or so and meet up with a bunch of people that I probably would have met up with if I lived there. But I might also go to New York, also go to LA, also go to wherever else I need to go to. So you're kind of seeing potentially a little bit of fragmentation on some of these maybe smaller, more emerging brands. And maybe that's a function of, emerging managers, these VC managers. You're also seeing so much capital wanting to come into the space because the returns are there. You're also maybe seeing some skepticism from these institutional LPs who are maybe thinking like I am, like the returns probably won't be this good. Like with all this competition, returns will come down. So I mean, we'll probably see interesting things with kind of like fund of funds or modern day funds of funds that, you're investing in different types of emerging managers that are maybe a little bit more distributed or maybe a little bit more like smaller traditionally than some of the other venture funds. You're seeing people write smaller checks. You're seeing people who are founders or operators have these kind of part-time funds. Maybe they're full-time, part-time-ish.
Well, we've certainly seen a huge explosion in like scout funds and micro VCs, these types of things. And so it's really interesting considering that the product is commoditized money, right? And so I always found it to be fascinating having, as a founder, being funded, generally on the other side of the equation, not a VC myself, but seeing this just burgeoning growth of money. And that's what happens when you have a captive asset class like this. In venture, it just money begets more money, and everyone ends up becoming SoftBank.
Well, and you really think of where a lot of that's coming from. It's coming from institutional LPs, sure, but it's also coming from people who worked at or compensated by stock from Facebook, Google, like these massive companies that are, hundreds of billions of dollars. What are they going to do? Are they going to sell some of their stock and invest in oil and gas companies or buy bonds? Probably not. They know tech, so they're gonna either do it themselves or give it to their friends. So I mean, I think that's part of it. I think you probably want to pay attention to the stock price of, let's say suddenly Google, Amazon, Facebook, and all these big tech communities, those are kind of sort of a lot of the wealth's coming from those. Let's just say they get chopped in half.
The
What
fangs
happens?
of the world.
I don't think that they'll get chopped in half. Like, I think they have really very powerful business models that will be generating cash for a long time. But I mean, that's kind of a part of a function of some of this too, is some of these smaller managers are emerging from these businesses who, like Airbnb, went from 0 to 30 billion in 10 years. And a lot of that's just getting reinvested in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's certainly changing times. Well, I want to end us off here with a final VC Hunted Twitter post. We're going way back, here, Turner. I had two of them, but I'm going to pick the one from 2012. On April 14th, 2012, you had a great question, and I want to ask this question of you because it is 8 years ago, so maybe your own internal questions changed. But April 14th, 2012, you said this. Ask yourself this: 5 years from now, what are you going to wish you did today? You're laughing. So is there context? Was it is a funny context, or were you having a moment of thinking into the ephemeral?
Yeah, honestly, I don't even remember tweeting that.
It's when it's on the internet, it's forever, bro.
I did it. Yeah.
So let me ask you. I mean, if you ask yourself this: 5 years from now, what are you gonna wish? You said, "Are you gonna wish you did today?" So Turner, what are you gonna wish you did today 5 years from now?
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing what I wish that I did. I think probably, like anyone says, probably spend more time with your family and appreciating that kind of stuff. That's one of the things I've been trying to be a little bit better at. I'm super career focused and ambitious, but also really trying to appreciate what I have. My daughter's growing up super fast, and I try to spend as much time with my wife and my daughter as I can with family. But yeah, this is a good reflection that I'm having right now. I probably should spend more time doing things that are not related to being a VC.
You know what?
At the same time, I love investing. I love being a VC. So I'm glad I'm doing it, and hopefully I'm still doing it in 5 years.
I hope you are, and I hope we can certainly have you on again. Turner, that was a great response. I think it's always great to remember that family really, at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, it's going to be them, probably not your founders or your other venture partners, as much as you might like them now. Thanks so much.
Hopefully you're friends with everybody, but
hopefully, but you know what? Who knows? It's tough.
Yeah, who knows?
Thanks so much, Turner. I'm going to give you the final word. Where can we learn more about you? Where can we find you online and learn more about you and your investment fund?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Turner Novak. Try to be pretty conversational on there, talk about things that are on my mind, respond to people. Add me on LinkedIn. You can shoot me an email. If you're a founder, my email's on my Twitter. I think it's my location on my Twitter handle is on my profile is actually my email address. And then, yeah, hopefully we'll see some people around to listen to the podcast.
Awesome. Well, if you're an early stage founder out there and you got some great ideas, make sure that now you know who Turner is and what he's all about, and GELT.VC. Check him out, guys. Thanks so much, Turner. We'll talk again sometime.
Thanks. See you later.
True startup story time. Guys, as a founder, I'm often asked, what are my go-to tools and technology that I use as I begin a startup? Well, that's easy. One of them is Dropbox. Dropbox is the easiest way to ensure that all your files and documents are synced on all devices, whether it be mobile, your local desktop, or remote. We want to thank Dropbox for supporting VCHunting.com, and make sure to get your 30-day trial free at Dropbox.com/business. Well, that was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with Turner Novak from GELT.VC. Great conversation. A very, very hungry individual. We were talking a little bit about this offline, but he's passionate about work. He's passionate about his career. He's passionate about growing, and he's hungry to grow and to improve and to do more. But at the same time, he also has the tension, right? The tension of spending more time with his family and his young daughter as well. And obviously for me as a father of two, I can greatly appreciate that. And I didn't give, by the way, I didn't give Turner any advice, because I'm not going to give unsolicited advice in this regard. But if I were to give advice, I'd say spend more time. Spend more time with your wife and kid. Money will come and go. Opportunities come and go. I tell you, that family's forever. I really enjoyed this conversation. Turner is a great communicator, and he has a work ethic that I can see so clear. He has a place he wants to be. He has a thing that he wants to do, and he's willing to grind it out. He's willing to work for it. And I loved his story. I hope you guys loved his story too. And such a great example. Can I remind you of what the story was? It is a guy in a small Midwest city with no relevant tech startup, experience, who came from a family that was split. And then his mother, right, working in a non-scalable, industry, but it's the artist industry. Hopefully, doing what she loves. I think she is. I believe she is doing what she loves. Getting and seeing the insides of a startup, moving into getting a degree in accounting and finance, I believe, and then moving into investing and getting interested in the stock market. But then, over time, he got interested in the venture capital side, the human side. Investing in ideas, not just data. And so he had no experience. So what did he do? He became, and this is something that I talk about all the time on my podcast. This is something I always, it's so important, is he began acting. He began acting in the way of what a person, of what a VC would do, or what the person that he wants to be would do. And so he started blogging and talking about different ideas in venture capital. He started interviewing. He started tweeting about it, maybe being a contrarian, but showing the research. He also, through that work of tweeting, blogging, getting his name out there into the venture capital world, which is where he wanted to be, he also proved that he could do the analysis, the diligence, the hard work on these companies so that people could take him seriously. Like, this is literally the script. And in many ways, the script of what I'm writing my book about and what I've done through all of my startups and the things that I've created is you figure out in terms of vision where you want to be, and then you become that slowly, surely. But you have to put in the work. You have to show that you're doing things that person or that individual of where you want to be should be doing. In Turner Novak's case, a VC. He's doing VC things, tweeting, blogging, talking about it, going on shows, doing analysis, showing the world his results of his analysis. That's what VCs do. And so if you want to be a VC, you must become a VC. You must slowly become doing it. So whatever you're doing out there, I hope you're understanding the narrative, guys. Very, very powerful here. Is that whatever you want to do, begin acting like it. Begin moving in that trajectory, brick by brick, day by day. I love this story. It's the story of success. It's a story of life learning over time, and that way you'll always have purpose. I mean, I just we talked about a lot of other stuff, but frankly, that's all I wanted to share in this retrospective. That Turner Novak is a great example. Of someone who literally can become, of an example of someone, and anyone can become whatever they want. You just have to begin acting that way, moving your mind, your body, and your actions and what you're doing in that trajectory, and doing what those people that you want to be like or be with, what would they be doing? Then you start doing that. That's how you build stuff. That's how you build a life of purpose. That's how you build something that's yours and you have direction towards it. The nobility of work. The nobility of work, guys. Well, Turner's a great guy. I hope to speak with him again soon, and I hope to get a great recommendation from him as well, from another great VC that can come on the VC Hunting Show. Guys, if you want more information and the field notes on all of this, certainly you can go to vchunting.com/Turner Novak. Guys, I really enjoyed this one. I hope it was inspiring, and it was life-giving to me. We'll see you guys next time.